As President Trump continues his attacks on the Constitution, Senate Republicans are on track to hold a vote later this week on a bill that will potentially disenfranchise millions of American voters. And that would be the so-called Save America Act, which would require eligible voters to provide proof of citizenship, including a U.S. passport or a birth certificate, plus a photo ID when registering to vote. Now, the bill has already been passed by the GOP-led House and will go to the Senate, where it now has support from 50 Republican senators, which means the only thing standing in the way of it becoming law is the 60-vote filibuster rule, which Democrats could still block. Joining us now is Janai Nelson, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Janai, it's great to have you with us. Talk to us about how much of a disruption this legislation could be for voters if the Senate does, in fact, pass it.
This could be a significant barrier for people who are already registered to vote, for people who want to register to vote and enter the electorate. It is a clear voter suppression bill. It is a misnomer to call it the SAVE Act. It saves no one. It's not about protecting our elections at all. It's about sabotaging them. And it's about shrinking the American electorate so that elected officials don't have to earn your vote. They get to cabin the number of people who will vote for them and therefore do not really want to be held accountable. So the SAVE Act is quite disastrous for our democracy at a time when the right to vote could not be more important for those people who do not like the status quo, who are concerned about the cost of food, the cost of health care, the snatching of friends and neighbors off the street by ICE. The right to vote is the only thing that's going to change that. And that's why this effort to block the SAVE Act is so critically important.
Janai, I'm wondering if you can speak to sort of the preparation, the minds coming together to strategize ahead of the midterms right now, because the reality is, in a way, Trump wins no matter what happens with this. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Either the SAVE Act passes and he gets these massive restrictions, or if it fails, he'll be able to turn and complain and say that our elections are not secure, this important thing did not work out the way that he was hoping that it would, and he'll be able to use that as a cudgel, as he has with other issues in the past, and to kind of continue the drumbeat to undermine our election security around the country. So given that landscape, what are organizations, people dedicated to civil rights, to voting rights in the U.S. doing right now to make sure that these midterms are as secure as possible?
Well, one, we're blocking the SAVE Act. That's the first step. That's the most immediate threat to the sanctity of our elections and the security of our elections in the fall. But we're also making sure that no matter what happens this fall, voters are equipped with the knowledge to know how to register, how to turn out at the polls, how to cast a ballot that will be counted, no matter what the rules are when we get to the polls in November. But the duty of every single person who cares about our elections right now is to call their senator and to say, vote no on the SAVE Act, because we know that this lie about voter fraud is really a fraud on voters who've been falsely led to believe that our elections are not secure simply because Donald Trump lost in the 2020 elections. So that cannot be a basis for enacting legislation that makes it harder to vote. Our votes and our elections are secure. If there's any concern, it should be about the Russian interference that happened in the 2020 elections and in 2024.
Janai, just to play devil's advocate for a second, the idea of having voter ID is actually quite popular among the American population. It generally polls very well. People like the idea of ensuring that it's only citizens who vote. Can you explain why you disagree with that, why you think it is burdensome in general or in the specifics of this particular bill?
Absolutely. So first, it's a falsehood to suggest that there isn't already a robust ID system across the entire United States. All states require some method of voter verification, whether it's by matching your signature, whether it's by presenting some form of state-issued ID or a utility bill with your current address. So the idea that folks are just showing up to the polls and just casting ballots without any identification or any way of verifying who they are is absolutely false. That's wrong. We already have a system in place, and it has served us well for many, many, many years. What it's what's happening now is an effort to try to restrict the forms of ID and the ways that you can verify who you are. And that is because they want to whittle out most of the electorate. They want to create a situation where only the most difficult forms of ID, the ones that a large percentage of Americans don't possess, are the ones that are going to be elevated as the ones that you need to show, like a passport in order to register to vote, or a birth certificate. And I challenge anyone to tell me if they can just grab their birth certificate out of their pocket right now. It's just not that easy. Many people, in fact, 146 million Americans, don't have a passport. And many don't have ready access to their birth certificate. And to get a passport can cost as much as $130. So what we are in effect doing is reimposing a poll tax on the right to vote. We're making it more onerous when there's absolutely no justification or basis to do so.
Janae Nelson, thank you. I'll note that this was also tried, essentially, almost the exact same proposition in Kansas more than a decade ago, and it was struck down as unconstitutional because it barred tens of thousands of eligible people from being able to participate. And if you multiply Kansas by the rest of the country, got a big problem on our hands. Great to have you. Janae, thank you so much.
Thank you.